Welcome to Any Music Podcast, episode 309, Production and Producing. Any Music Podcast now has a Patreon at patreon.com/indie_musiccast, and we invite you to become a member for exclusive benefits. For next to nothing per month, you can get members-only video, early access to upcoming episodes, merch, and more. This morning, Matt and I get together for coffee and discuss aspects of production, a definition of being a producer, and thoughts on independent artists taking on all of the production roles or delegating responsibilities for producing their music. Enjoy the show. What's up? That is kind of freaky. The sinister laugh with nothing else.
Oh, I'm here.
There you are. Wipe the sleep from your eyes.
Oh, seriously. I am still waking up, kind of dehydrated and headachy.
Is that a VU sweatshirt?
It's just a hoodie.
Oh,
I know I should get one though. I wear sweatshirts all the time.
I'm a sweatshirt fan.
My cords are all tangled here. Hang on.
This is a sneak peek into the setup process before we start a podcast.
Yeah, it's a little behind the scenes action. Matt untangles his headphone cord, turns down his mains. Oh, I'm still laughing about last week. We talked about 45 minutes on preparing yourself and getting ready and how to get ready for the studio. And at the end of it, I found that I didn't hit record on my DAW. Did everything else right, except the one button. Oh, yeah. Hilarious.
I thought it was.
Well, it just goes to show that even after, it doesn't matter how many times you've done something, you still need to, go through your checklist and make sure you've hit all the right notes.
I mean, the irony of it all.
The irony is perfect. Oh, by the way, I didn't hit record in our getting ready for studio recording.
Well, it's a good thing that we do our Zoom audio backups. So
yes, that only burned us once. How are you, man?
That is a long week.
I was gonna say we haven't talked for a couple of days, and when that happens, I know that you're just overwhelmed and busy.
But no, it was a great week. Actually, it ended on a real positive note. It was just heads down, and the old construction adage of asses and elbows. Because that's. If you come up to the job site, that's all you see, because people are working. And
I haven't heard that one. Is that a Midwest thing?
It must be. It's the only place I've ever heard it. So.
Oh, funny.
But that was it. When the foreman would be showing up, pulling up to the job to check on things, someone would yell out "asses and elbows," and everybody'd get to work.
I'll have to remember that. Yeah, it was a week here too, but I don't want to go into any of that.
It all started out with forgetting to hit the record button, so it just
went downhill,
cascaded from there. Yep.
Pretty much.
Well, we're winging it today.
We are winging it today.
We
have a topic.
We do.
Well, we announced it last week. Remember? You made us announce it. Production. We promised everybody we were going to talk about production.
What about production?
What about production? Well, I know, kind of open-ended, right?
It's such a distant memory right now.
Oh, yeah.
I vaguely recall saying that, so I'm glad you remembered.
You insisted that we keep it. I was like trying to wiggle out of that one. But we made a gentleman's agreement that we were going to talk about production today.
All right. I have no idea what we're going to talk about in production, but is it Well, since this is, you know, for the
For the indie
independent musician and the home studio kind of, you know, and project studio context, then maybe we talk about you know, processes of recording your next indie single or something like that.
Something like that. I mean, we can go anywhere with this, but I mean, I had some things in my mind and I was kind of wondering how to bring them up. But
yeah, give me something and I'll see if I can come up with a clever segue.
It's too late. We're already on it. We're already on the topic. People talk about, I mean, the word producer gets thrown around a lot, and
oh yeah,
it has a completely different meaning in the modern music era than it did in our day. And at a higher level, it still means what I think it means. Here you think of producer these days as somebody who makes beats, right? You're a beat maker. You make backing tracks in your DAW for other people to like rap over. That's kind of like those people call, or for sync, you know, maybe they can be instrumentals, but that's what people use the term producer for a lot these days. To me, a producer is the classical sense of somebody who is kind of like a project manager on a musical recording, somebody who oversees the project, makes sure that not only is everything getting done in time and properly, but also makes some musical suggestions. So, oh, you know what, this verse is, you know, could be beefed up or needs an extra instrument here, or you know what, let's bring in a session musician. I know a guy will bring in a session musician. I mean, to me that's what a producer does, is somebody who kind of shepherds a music project along.
yeah, kind of I see a producer as being an artistic director.
There you go. That's better than project manager. But I mean, I've heard from producers that say that their job is like 80% therapist, you know,
yeah,
making sure that everybody gets along, smoothing over the rough patches of personalities. I think that, you know, when people are working solo, that doesn't really necessarily apply, but artistic director, I think, is a much better way to think of it.
yeah, and I think in the classical sense, you know, of that role, the producer was often, if not on the mixer board, working with the engineer
Closely, yes.
as well, you know, in probably in the recording, but in post-production more so, you know, there's a lot of artistic options in
Sure.
the mix process.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and so
1,000 decisions to make.
yeah, and so that producer role, you know, is integral in that decision making process.
Right, but even before the mixing process, I mean, a producer can be involved in the song creation and the
Sure.
arrangement, and even like making sure that the lyrics are good. I mean, Rick Rubin kind of infamously, I mean, people don't want to name names, but he infamously said to Adele when she brought him a bunch of new songs, he said, I don't believe that these are sincere. I think you need to go back and write some more songs.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and she did, and that was some of the songs that were on her album 25 were ones that she wrote after Rick Rubin kind of said, yeah, I think you need to write more from the heart. These are not, I don't believe the stuff that you've come up with here.
Yeah. You know, and that's how valuable is that, you know, to have someone speaking really bluntly honest, you know.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that's been on my mind. And you know, I work with a lot of independent musicians, as I'm sure you do as well. And a lot of independent musicians, well, even if they're not one man bands, you know, they tend to write their own music. They tend to record their own music. They tend to produce their own music, and oftentimes they want to mix their own music. And you know, when you ask everybody if they're a good driver, everybody says they're an excellent driver, and yet when you go out on the freeway, there's a bunch of idiots. I don't think that anybody can do everything well, and I think that it flies over the head of a lot of even kind of seasoned musicians that the people you hear on the radio, the pros, the ones who have the longevity, the ones who have the hits, the ones who have make all the money, they're not self-producing their records. Their label hires a big name producer to come in, help write their songs, help shepherd their projects. And Katy Perry's not producing her own records.
Right.
I think that a lot of people kind of don't realize what an important role it is for somebody else to come in and make sure that, well, your vision is true to your vision, but it's also maybe elevated beyond what you can do alone.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people aspire to be able to take on all the hats and,
Right.
be all the roles. And I think in every instance, it's budget driven. Like, we've heard of the technology divide, and which is an economic situation which divides people into different groups of who can afford technology versus who can't. And
Right.
and I think we get into like a musical artistic production divide, in that it's really driven by the financial capabilities of the independent artist,
Yes.
on whether how much they're going to take on themselves. And in my experience, those who have begun to delegate some of the production aspects of the roles have found themselves to be much happier in their production process, because there's a whole load that's been taken off of their shoulders. There's a whole set of learning and capabilities that they don't have to be responsible for, other than final approvals, or it's not that those artists are taken out of the picture entirely. No, they're still completely involved in the process. It's just that someone else is actually doing the work, and someone who specializes in that particular area, whether it be a mix engineer or it be a writer, a songwriter. Potentially it's an artist that is hiring someone to write lyrics for them, or there's 100 things I could name off here, through the whole process of creating music. And I don't think it's realistic to think that you can really take it all on. We all need someone else. We need help, and it's such a big job. It's not just writing a lick and coming up with a song, and there's that's just the very beginning. It's there's so much more. And in today's the technology and everything that's involved, it takes a great deal of learning and lots of different types of applications in order to, and I don't mean applications in the sense of programs, I mean applied areas. And that is years and years of focus and training in all these different areas, so
right. Each one of those things basically is a full-time job: a songwriter, a lyricist, a mixer, a producer, session recordings. Each one of those could be a full-time job for somebody.
Yeah.
But people often like try to wear all those hats. And I mean, unless you're Prince, you're probably not going to do them all well. And
now, after a number of years,
lifetime.
After a number of years and practice, obviously, people.
Oh, sure.
Prince, it's not to say that it's not doable, but what I am saying is that in my experience, I've found that those who do are much happier. And
yeah, no, I know. It's like when you get somebody to mow your lawn for you. Well, now that time is freed up for you to do something more interesting, and then you can go out and go, yeah, the lawn looks good.
Yeah, exactly. And also with the end results and the expedited delivery of these things, because those who are practiced in those various roles do things faster.
Sure.
Just because they are, more practiced and better at it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But and so the song gets released. It actually happens,
Yes.
when you get, and when you put a little bit of your own money into your own project and you are invested in it, I think it's more likely that you'll not give up on it. It won't end up being a file that sits in a,
That's a good point too. Well, but if you have somebody else, I mean, I think part of there's a bunch of factors. The money thing is one, but I've also seen people, and I used to be this way initially, very just kind of like holding on to everything. It's like, oh, I don't want to, dilute my artistic vision. I don't want to share this. Nobody understands me. I don't think anybody else can convey the things that I want to convey the way that, maybe some of it is also like royalty sharing is too confusing and complicated, and B, I don't want to give any part of my creation away, publishing or otherwise. And that a lot of that is much ado about nothing, because I mean, I've been releasing music for a decade, and how much money have I made on my music? Not a lot.
yeah.
So all that fretting about royalty splits and who's getting what publishing, it's so much to do about nothing.
Yeah.
But
I think maybe that mindset too, it could be, reversed. Potentially, if the song were to be a hit, as a result of the team, and having a team mentality like that, it would be, it'd be like kind of an honor to split that,
I would think so. I mean, but maybe that's a maturity thing or an ego thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors at play. Not a little of which is the fear of the unknown. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if people, is this somebody going to steal this? I mean, I almost feel like you'd be lucky if somebody thought your stuff was interesting enough to steal.
Yeah.
But,
and then maybe that's the mentality where this isn't worth investing in. I'll do it myself the best that I can, because nothing's ever going to come of it anyway. So why put why invest in it for hiring outside roles to handle different places. So.
True. I think that now that that's a good point, and I think that secretly in people's hearts sometimes is some of this is just excuses for the fear that they're not good enough. Like, I like my stuff. I secretly fear that it's not good enough. So I don't want to bring somebody else on to tell me that to my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I keep it all myself and I do everything myself, then I can say, well, this is as good as I could do.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, this could have been better with the help of somebody else. It's just a thought.
Yeah. And coming from a perspective of mastering, that's not my role to say that it's not good enough or something like that. There may be production aspects or things that I think can be improved on that I can give feedback on that are maybe more technical in the context of the mix or something like that, but whether or not it's artistically good or something like that, that's subjective. It would be my own opinion, and that doesn't really matter in that scope of someone else's artistic endeavor.
Yeah, because you're getting handed finished tracks, and they're saying this is what we have for you.
Yeah,
because it's the creation is done, and what you're doing is putting frosting on the cake or a frame on the painting and saying, here, I'm making this presentable to the world in the best fashion it can be.
Yeah, I mean, something's come along, and where in the context of a song, I might be like, in listening to this, I can't really hear the bass guitar like I think maybe you want it to be heard, and or I have had some ideas that I've shared and provided some suggestions about dynamics in the song and how things build, and do take a little bit of artistic risk in that sense of, I think this might be really cool. What do you think? Approach. But yeah, whether or not it's an artistically viable piece of work, that's really not for me to say. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I see a lot of busy arrangements. I see a lot of like too many guitar tracks, for instance. I see a lot of, things that, if I was in the studio with somebody, I'd say maybe you could re-record that, or maybe we could try this or whatever. And it's just kind of interesting, to watch things in the creation process, and you know I feel sometimes like people don't have enough of a feedback loop during the creation process, I think is ultimately what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's a resource problem or a fear problem or a blind spot, but I think people could do with a lot more, if nothing else, just checking in with a tight circle of other creators, similar at a similar level or above, and say, hey, what do you think of this arrangement? What do you think of this riff? What do you think of this song? What do you think of this? And get actual feedback, and not take it personally, and take it as a constructive, not constructive criticism, but just take it as constructive feedback.
Yeah, because there's that whole "your baby is ugly" thing, and
he talked about that the other day. Some babies are ugly. Hey, I'm sorry, they just, not every baby is cute.
Yeah.
But your baby will always be cute to you.
Yes,
I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Your baby will always be cute to you, but it may be objectively not that attractive. You just don't know it. And who's going to give you that feedback, right?
Yeah.
Dude, your baby.
A face that only a mother could love, so.
Oh, man, it's been a while since I've seen an actual baby.
Okay, that was so funny, I forgot.
Oh, I was too much at the thought of telling somebody that their baby is ugly. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, what a concept.
Well, anyway, I think also that it's the feedback that we do give, it really depends on the role that we are in. And yes, to your point of trying to do it all yourself, then you're relying on you to give yourself unobjective opinions about your own work, which is not really
difficult.
Yeah, if not impossible, because in this type of work, you're emotionally invested in it, and so that's a really hard thing to do, like you said. When you get someone outside of that box that can look at it from a different perspective, then I think that probably has more value, especially if it's someone that you trust, than you're to yourself. It's
right. Yeah, and I think the easiest way to give yourself feedback is to take a break from something. Like if you're done recording for the day, leave it, go do something else, come back the following day and listen to it again with like fresh ears. You're in a different headspace, you're not in the same moment, and you can tell a little more objectively whether it was as good as you thought it was, or fills your meets your intention.
Right.
But intention, I think, is super important. So is your goal to be on the radio? Is your goal to be, to make it big? Or is your goal to just, release stuff on Bandcamp kind of for yourself, and if somebody likes it, then you're happy just with that? Those are two completely different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
One, it doesn't really matter about your feedback loop. If it makes you happy, then you're done.
Do you think that's kind of like music as a hobby versus music as a profession? Different mentalities?
Yeah. I think that's a good summation, because if it's a hobby, then it doesn't matter if anybody likes it or not. And if somebody does, then boom, feather in your cap.
Yeah.
But if you want to do if you want to do music for a living and you expect other people to like it on broader scale, then you really need to be making sure, if nothing else, through best practices and going, is my stuff as good and well arranged as the commercial stuff that I aspire to be like?
Right.
And you have to be honest with yourself. Well, if your guitar playing is not up to snuff, well, then you need to go back to the drawing board and learn to play your guitar better. You know what I mean? If your vocals are not up to snuff, take a year, take some vocal lessons, give yourself the time and space to actually improve. I mean,
Yeah.
if you
And
think you're going to compete with people who've been singing since they were 5 years old, then you got to do some work.
and that's the time where current projects go somewhere to die,
Yeah.
because it's not good enough. And then, am I going to need to actually pick this project up a year from now after I've taken vocal lessons, and I'm going to come back and try to redo this? Is that, I'm sure that happens, but I think probably less than you might want to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. We were talking yesterday in the DIY music chat about coming back from a hiatus and how do you get started again. And one of the things I said was a great thing to do is a practice project that's basically, do a cover song where you're not, where you're rebuilding your workflow or your studio with a song that you kind of already know, rather than complicating that further with an original song that you could be anything. And the point that I feel could be added to what you just said is, not everything you create has to be released. Some of it is inherent value is as practice, not as a finished product. True. And it can be just that, and that has its own value. Not everything has to see the light of day. I mean, you don't know how many projects or songs or rough drafts your favorite writer, you don't know how many rough drafts that person has in a drawer or whatever. You don't know how many things that were never brought to the light of day, or how many songs your favorite band brought to the studio and only picked 9 for their last album. Maybe they brought 30.
Yeah.
And maybe some of those just didn't make the cut,
or brought 4 and wrote 5 more in the studio.
also that. If you got the money, hey. But yeah, not everything needs to see the light of day. But bringing it back around to production, if you have a producer who can go through those unfinished things and say, hey, you know what, if you take this riff from this song and this verse from this song and put these together, I think we can write something new. That's something that somebody with a fresh perspective can bring to the table. Otherwise, yeah, you are just kind of like not competing against yourself, but if you're the one person with singular taste and singular vision, you may not be able to see the forest for the trees on some of your own half-finished projects.
True. Yeah. So what is the thing that blocks you from finishing and releasing your music? And do you have projects that you think are actually practice, or is every project that you begin, is it something that you have intention to and to blossom into a complete production?
Well, that's an excellent question. From here, I can only speak from experience, and I think that's what you're asking. I do start every project with the intention that it would be brought to full fruition. That doesn't mean they all get there. I have songs kicking around on my hard drive from 2007, 2009, songs that some of them I still intend to bring them to light, and some of them I go back and listen to and go, wow, I really didn't know anything about anything back then. I guess that'll just be an exercise. I'll just leave it as that. But it is interesting because you evolve as a person as well as a musician, and maybe some of the songs you wrote previously you just don't identify with anymore. And then what do you do then?
There's that emotional time context where after a certain amount of time that you just don't feel it anymore. And so you're not emotionally vested in it like you used to be. And
Right.
so it just doesn't feel like I don't even really want to go back into that mindset. Maybe, that was maybe that was a dark thing, and I'm
Yeah.
not there anymore or something like that,
No,
and
that hits the nail on the head. I have projects like that where I just like, you know what? That's I'm not that the person that wrote that now, and I can't sing that sincerely or whatever.
yeah,
So that, I mean, that is an interesting one. And maybe you take that and you hand it to somebody else and say, here's a song I wrote, run with it. And then you
yeah,
can be a
yeah. Maybe it
co-writer.
has value in that way. If maybe you wrote a killer set of lyrics at the time, and you just
Mhm.
had trouble bringing the music together with it. Potentially those lyrics have value and could be used
Mhm.
by another artist to incorporate
Right.
into music that actually is like, hey, this tune I wrote works great with these lyrics, or maybe with just some modifications for rhythm and things like that. But those things could still have value if you put them out there. So I know some people who are posting their poems all the time,
Mhm.
and which it's poems slash song lyrics, and just to see if anybody resonates with that,
Oh, yeah.
in the music community.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's forums for that. And there's, loosely affiliated groups like Facebook's groups and stuff. I think that from a feedback loop perspective and from a co-writing or handoff kind of perspective, I think that it kind of behooves artists to be close with other artists and have a circle of people that you trust, that you can get feedback from and trade ideas with, and help you get unstuck when you're stuck. And I think it's easier now than ever to find those people online. And you don't have to be you don't have to, you don't have to staple something to a telephone pole anymore. Hey, you know, looking for co-writers,
Yeah,
and take a number, call me, just go on social media, hit a few hashtags, and show what people, show them what you want and show them what you're about, and you'll find your people.
yeah,
But I think it's important to have a small circle that you can have a mutual feedback loop with.
yeah, definitely. And I think over time, I know you and I have developed. We have lots of friends we've never met that
Mhm.
that we I know we feel comfortable in bouncing things off of a lot of different people, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and so it doesn't necessarily take um, face-to-face relationships in order to establish that. It might just take some time,
Right.
and interaction and getting to know other people and having a few direct messages and private conversations as well, over a period of time, to a point where you've got that kind of thing built that is
Mhm.
trust, I think,
Right.
and where you go, hey, what do you think of this, and where you actually aren't afraid to ask and are willing to accept the feedback and trust that feedback from the source that it's coming from.
Yeah, trust that's an excellent word, because you can't take a half finished piece of music to a non-musician, like a friend or family member, and say, hey, what do you think of this? Because they're not going to get it. But you can take it to another musician who knows what a half finished song sounds like and what the potential might be, and go, oh yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. So I'll share something that I have a hard time with, and that is song structure.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the stuff that I've written has shortcomings in how it's actually structured in in verse chorus, and how that's laid out, bridge and things like that.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of that is because of just my um, lack of music training in writing songs
Hmm.
and how songs should be structured. But then, you know, sticking to some sort of pattern also never felt really good to me too. I wanted to flow how I feel it, and oftentimes
Right.
that's not really to a structure, or it's a weird structure or something like that. And when sharing with other musicians, it's like, well, that's weird, because it's really hard to get the drums on this, because it's not laying out in a structural way or something like that. And so that's an area that I've had problems with. Do you have anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to, talking about, the hobbyist versus the professional, like the big camp. I don't care if anybody likes this versus I want this to be, appreciated by more people. There's conventions, and people don't like some people don't like the what you would consider a formula or a structure, because they feel like that's gonna dilute their art, or it's gonna be put it in a box that it doesn't need to be in or something. But probably almost every song you've ever heard on the radio conforms to one structure or another, but it doesn't feel like it does. You could pick out the parts, but just like there's only 12 notes, but all of the songs that we know come from those same 12 notes. There aren't that many different structures, but there's so many variations on those structures that each one kind of feels original, even when you can clearly pick out the intro, the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, the next verse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can pick those out, but that doesn't mean Master of Puppets is ever going to be confused with Lady Gaga's Poker Face, but you can clearly pick out the sections in each song. You know what I mean? So people do expect that, because it helps that it not only helps the song journey, the emotional journey, and the story journey, but it helps that tension and release of, here comes the buildup, here comes the payoff, we drop you back down and we build it up again, and then we go somewhere, take you on a journey somewhere else, and then we bring you back, and then we have a breakdown verse where you get ready for the big payoff, and then let the bodies hit the floor, and then you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
there's a journey there, and there's a reason that those conventions exist, and I do think that they're important to not conform is not the right word. You don't want to conform to anything, but I think that people have an expectation when they listen to a song that it's going to have a certain structure. Otherwise, it's just confusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you're in a club and it's freeform jazz and you don't really care, as long as it just kind of floats your boat. But that's not what most people are listening to, I don't think.
Yeah, that's probably why I gravitated towards the mastering.
It's funny. I did when I started out, and I was like, doing like a song a month. I had an Excel spreadsheet that I was using to track the different parts of each song, so that I didn't repeat the same formula every time. Intro, verse, chorus, and then I would do chorus, verse, chorus, and then it would, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing the same thing over and over again. So there are definitely many variations on a theme you can do without making them sound robotic and formulaic.
Yeah.
You will hear formulaic sounds on the radio. Top 40 these days, all that dance related stuff, very formulaic, some of it. But again, everybody brings their own creativity to the table, their own experience, their own level of mastery to the table, and so everything sounds different, even if it fits in the box.
Well, hey everybody, I hope this episode resonated with you in some way, and we'd love to have you chime in and comment, connect with us, and discuss anything that we're talking about in our podcasts, or outside of that, or if there's something that you'd like us to talk about, certainly let us know.
Absolutely. We're always open to topic suggestions and feedback and comments and questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit us up anytime.
But thank you so much for joining us today, as we talked about producing and production. And this is going to be kind of a hard one to put a title on. I'll have to think about it for a few, but
Yeah.
maybe it'll just be
music production and song structure.
producers ? I don't know. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody.
Peace.